Yeah, welcome back, friends, to the Shoutout Fight Podcast. How are you doing today? It is Monday, July 10th here in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And for those who are from the area, we call it Stampede Week. Yeehaw! The Calgary Stampede, it is a massive celebration as well as a big giant rodeo, all that good stuff. I went down, speaking of Stampede and rodeo and cowboys and all that good stuff, today's guest, Mr. Charles Bisset, he is Cowboy as. I can't believe I know someone like this. Anyway, he's in. I'm super happy I got to talk to him today. Before we get there, guys, I do want to give a quick shout out to Mrs. Shoutout Fight Podcast. It was our anniversary yesterday, so we actually went down to the Stampede grounds. You know, it's all the food and the fair, stuff, as well as just an ungodly amount of people. Ridiculous. But anyway, had lots of fun and just enjoying the summer around here. It doesn't last very long. Here around Calgary. So me and the Cub out swimming and all that good stuff. Speaking of which, summertime, I'm going to be heading out to Kelowna. I just want to give a shout out to Top Notch Muay Thai. I'm hoping to just step in real quick and say hi, all that good stuff. Sorry, guys, fix my mic here. As well as do a podcast with my boy B Kong, because of course, number one, make sure you like the podcast. Just really easy, hit it with your finger. It does me a favor. Number two, if you could quickly share it with all your friends and family. And again, just write a little ditty. And if you're a real one, you'll subscribe to the Shoutout Podcast, because in the words of my man, B Kong, only the real ones subscribe. So I'm hoping to, so make sure you subscribe to the Shoutout Podcast. So I'm hoping to head out to Kelowna and have a chit chat with him, have a good podcast. Old school training partner. Haven't seen him for a few years. So, nothing but my old dried up sausage. I'm looking forward to sitting down and reminiscing. It'll be fun. 5 stars, guys. Make sure you hit us with a 5-star review. Let me tell you why. This one here, this podcast, Charles Bisset, what a great story. Everything. Actor, cowboy, ranch, fighty. It's crazy. What a life. I can't believe I can't believe I know something like this. Anyway, that's definitely worth 5 stars. So make sure you hit that 5-star button, as well as make sure you show up, sign up, shoutoutpodcast.com. Thursday, July 27th, Charles Bisset seminar, 4-time world champ, originally from Canada, but living down in California. And listen, guys, I had that little ditty, me holding pads for him, or I think he made that actually, but I shared it. My legs, that was 8 days ago. My legs still hurt. They still hurt from his low kicks. Is he a giant gorilla? Absolutely. But he was just showing me his low kicks and how he likes to throw them and punish people. And, he's got 50, 60 fights, so he definitely knows how to do it. But I loved how he broke down his style, the kind of Dutch-style low kick. And this guy's worked with some real legends, and I'll let him explain it. But I'm telling you, I got to be the man behind the pads. I had the leg pads on. It didn't matter. It cut right through. And then he explained the low kicks. Loved it. I fell in love with low kicks. I mean, low kicks are one of the sort of hallmarks of Muay Thai, but I fell in love after, unfortunately, getting my ass kicked by Charles Bisset. I felt like I was in a car crash the next day. But please, shoutoutpodcast.com. I begged him to do the low kicks, demonstrate, teach, go through the low kicks that he does at the seminar. So I guarantee you'll see it. I've been around a long time. I fell in love with them. I'm sure you'll get something out of it. All right, shoutoutpodcast.com. You can sign up, $70 on the website, $80 at the door, but I only have room for about 30 at the most. So taking your chances if you're coming to the door. Like I said, shout out to Mrs. Shoutout Podcast. Happy anniversary. Or did I not? I'm not sure if I did. Yes, I did, right? I want to give a shout out to Turkey and Pistols, as always. Speaking of which, my gym, Arashido Martial Arts, but this is a Turkey and Pistol shirt that he made. And I want to give, I guess, of course, a shout out to Charles Bisset for the seminar, stopping in to tell us about his awesome story. All right, guys, before we move on, a couple things. I want to give a shout out to Ruthless Robbie Lawler. That's it. What a phenomenal career. Makes me feel old when you see the guys kind of start their careers and then end them. Like I said, old sausage. But, man, what a way to end it, too. Hey, knockout, first round, beautiful uppercut. But when I think of Ruthless Robbie Lawler, the 3 things I think of are, not in any particular order, by the way, Nick Diaz knocking him out. Not that that's good for Robbie Lawler. His absolute wars, number 1, with Melvin and Manhoof. Oh, my goodness. I'm sure it's on YouTube. And Rory McDonald, where he, lost, gave himself a third lip. Just what a savage of a man. And it's been cool to watch him. He's always been real. And just a quiet guy in the dark doing his thing. Ex-champ, former champ. Man, what a career for ruthless Robbie Lawler. Check out those 2 fights. Melvin Manhoef, if you haven't yet. And, of course, Rory McDonald, which is not that a few years ago. But. All right, guys. And one real quick thing. Just curious. Did anybody catch the last week's Rajadamnern World Series? They had that Joker main event thing. I talked about this already a little bit. And that fella from Japan, I can't remember his name, Miura, I think. The Japanese guy was doing double leg. This is the main event at Rajadamnern World Series. The Japanese fella's doing double leg takedowns like he's getting paid $100 per. And this Joker guy apparently is just grown up on the streets, doesn't really, no real fights. It's like, what's going on here? What's going on? And just, I mean, you know what's going on. I get it. But, oh, man, you're going to, I don't know. I know I'm an old man. Get off my lawn, you know. But just don't take it too far. I get it. I get what's happening. I get why. But please don't take it too far. Anyway, that's enough of my belly aching. All right, guys. Charles Bisset, great guy, great story. Yeah, what a fun guy. What a great life. I'm sure you guys will enjoy the podcast. Charles, shout out to you, buddy. Thanks a lot for stopping in and doing this. I really appreciate it. All right, let's get to it. My buddy, Charles Bisset. Here we go. All right. Welcome back, fight friends, to the Shout Out Fight Podcast. Bro, I got a Cowboy world champion son bitch right beside me, Charles Bisset. Thanks for coming in, buddy.
Damn right.
So, yeah, I was teasing about this one. By the way, before we move any further, just a quick reminder that my good friend Charles here will be doing a seminar here Thursday, July 28th at my gym, Arashido Martial Arts, Deerfoot North. So we will have a link up for the website right away. It's just a long weekend, so I got to wait a sec. And, yeah, so you can purchase tickets there in advance. You can purchase them at the door. This is a 4-time world champion. And what weight class do you fight at, Charles?
Super cruiserweight. Used to be cruiserweight, but I'd say super cruiserweight now.
There you go. So you're looking at like a 185, 190, 195 round.
200,
yeah? 200, okay. My goodness. Sorry, buddy. Didn't mean to shrink you. Yeah. So as I've explained to some of my students and people around, give me one second, guys. My bad. Sorry about that. It's rare, in my opinion, as someone who's been around the industry for a while, that you get a big guy who can fight or a big guy who's skilled. You kind of get one or the other. And in Charles' case, I'm sure you can attest to this, not to stroke while you're sitting here, but you get somebody who is big and skilled, very technical at the same time. So make sure you come to this seminar, guys. It's going to be awesome. Any quick previews maybe of your seminar on the 28th? What are we looking at maybe?
I think we're going to work on some distance, setting up like basic low kicks, setting up like a lot of counters. I'm a big counter fighter, so.
What before we kind of get into the meat and potatoes of this thing, just out of curiosity, because I don't coach very many big people. What would you say are like the 3 major things that the bigger fighters in Muay Thai or even kickboxing, it's up to you, have to watch out for?
I mean, at that weight class, things can go sour pretty fast.
Sure.
I think some people are just bangers. I'm not really like, I want to have to. I've had a grit down and bite in my mouth guard, but I like being technical, taking as less damage as possible and inflicting a lot of damage,
Right.
Keeping a technical fight is
nice,
key, for a long career.
And those are some of my favorite. Those are my favorite fighters, the technical fighters. Those are the people I gravitate towards. Now you're in Calgary. Can you give us a breakdown, maybe a little bit of a background, where you're from? How come you're in Calgary? Why you look like a cowboy? You're fighting, all this good stuff. So I think you're a pretty unique cat. Where I don't really know any cowboys, even though I'm from Calgary. But I also think that most of the cowboys around here go buy their stuff at Lamley's. No disrespect to Lamley's, great store. And that's kind of that. And they listen to their country music and drive their truck. But you're like a legit cowboy and a legit world champion. Dude, you're an anomaly.
Oh, thank
you're like Mars. You're your own planet. Can you break this down for us? Give us a little background.
Yeah. Well, I grew up off grid in British Columbia.
What does that mean?
I grew up with no power, electricity.
So you grew up in 1840?
Pretty much.
How? Okay, stop. How does that work?
So my dad was an American citizen, my mom too, and my dad grew up on a 500-acre dude ranch in Maryland.
500?
Yeah, they ran about 100 horses. And my dad got into singing. He's a singer, and he moved all around and lived in the city for a long time. Then he was doing a concert tour back up here in the 70s, and he was just like, man, I'm done with this. Went up to BC and found 35 acres, way in the middle of nowhere, nobody around. And he's like, I want to live here.
Really?
I think he saw Jeremiah Johnson too many times, you know? And went up there, had a few different divorces, and then met my mom.
Nice.
Brought her up there, and built a little cabin. And then they had my sister and I, and we were just raised up there. And it was like off grid, like it's like a good hour out of like. There's 2 small towns. One's 500 people, other one's 1,000 people. In the valley we grew up in, it's called the Ghost Valley because it's full of like ghost towns. And then it was like good 4 miles, 5 miles up a mountain. In the wintertime, we'd have to go home by sled, by snowmobile. So it sounds like fun, but like my dad'd be gone during the week a lot of times. My mom would be up there like getting stuck on the middle of the mountain.
I suppose so. Hey,
and it was tough, man. But it was like best way to grow up, you know.
What is it like being a kid growing up like that? Like, you know, with all the disrespect, you look at kids nowadays, they're all fat, they're uncoordinated, you know, screens. You know, I get it. Listen, my kid was on the iPad this morning. I mean, you were a witness.
Yeah.
But what's it like growing up in such an environment that, like, even people my age, I'm 41 years old, that's so foreign to me?
I mean, we were working right away. Like,
I suppose.
We had a good amount of horses up there, and then just for heat all summer is like getting wood for wintertime to keep ourselves warm, you know? We've lost roofs because like an average winter up there was 5 to 7 feet of snow. 97, I think we had like 21 feet of snow up there because it's a lot. It's a big snow belt. Like there's pictures of us going inside a cave of snow, and that's our cabin. Like you just see smoke coming out of the snow, and that's our chimney. There's like it was rugged, but like we were always just like my parents instilled work ethic in me.
Sure.
So I appreciate that, and we were homeschooled, so I was one of those weirdos, you know. But you know, we were homeschooled because middle of nowhere, you know.
Right. You had to have a choice.
You know, work ethic was instilled in us from that time.
It was education weird? Like, I feel like, I mean, in my mind, I feel like when you live in that environment, maybe 2% of that is education, and the rest of it is living.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
big time. You know, it was like I was never a great student. You know what I mean? Like I was always
most fighters weren't.
I was kind of just like doing that. I was like, I want to go out and play with horses. I want to go, you know, do something. You know, and you know, my mom, she was a music teacher. My mom was an opera teacher and a classical pianist, you know?
This is wild, bro.
It's weird, right? So
we're 6 minutes in, and this is a wild story already.
So it's funny, man. Like, you know, I'd go into town. I didn't have a ton of friends growing up, but like I had really good social skills because my mom would be teaching adults or teaching other people, and like we would be able to hold conversations with adults.
Did they come to your cabin house?
No,
or?
my mom had like studios in these little towns. So the amount we would drive was insane. My mom would go drive like 3 hours away and, you know, rent out like studios and be secretly like sleep in some of those spots too.
Sure,
you know,
sure.
be like, okay, we're gonna do this. So we lived a wild life. You know,
No
like
joke, man.
come home and
love
like
it.
2 a.m, then go up a mountain on a snowmobile. So it was rugged, you know.
Dang, bro,
And
that's great.
There'd be crazy stuff like this. Living out there, the simplest things, like if you go to town and you forget to turn off the water, your pipes are frozen in the winter. So like you have the sponge bay for the whole winter, have to haul water.
Right.
And,
you don't just get to call, you know, Avalon or whatever, right?
Yeah, you know, it's like you have to be kind of like, okay, remember all your due diligence, you know?
Jeez, man, that's wild. But such a good way as a young person to like your priorities are so. Yeah, come on in, guys. You're good. Don't worry. Come on in. Listen, this is a real working ass gym, so we got some people coming here, some instructors.
Damn right.
Like real responsibility. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if my kid doesn't tie his shoe, he steps on the shoelaces. Who cares?
Yeah, you got animals to take care of. You know, you gotta you gotta get after. You gotta work. You know, like you don't have enough wood for the wintertime, you're gonna be.
When did that start? Like, when did you start having to have these kinds of responsibilities?
I mean, well, my dad was a workhorse. My dad was a stud, you know, and he'd always bring us out there and be like, we were children, like we barely, some of those loggers bringing us, we'd go do our little part, you know.
Right.
But it was funny. My parents would always be like, "Well, man, you don't know how hard we had to work." You know, my dad was doing that since he was a kid on that dude ranch. You know,
crazy.
So
and is your whole family background like that? Farming, ranching?
No, I mean like my dad grew up on a dude ranch, and the whole family like.
What does that mean?
Horses. It means they would take out like trail rides for the. It's not a real working ranch. It was like a guest ranch, pretty much.
Perfect.
You know?
My kind of thing.
Yeah,
yeah,
man. You know, but they had to get after. They had dairy cows out there, so they'd be up like crack of dawn milking the dairy cows, you know, and they'd be getting after it. And my mom was like more of a city girl. Like she grew up like not in that. So props to her because she's probably one of the tougher ladies I know where she dealt with that. Very emotional artist, but she'd be like, I don't know why I'm out here, you know, like you're stuck in the middle of the mountain. But dude, she was tough, you know. Like we'd be with 2 kids. My dad'd be gone during the week, and if we got the snowmobile stuck, she'd be getting it out,
Damn, eh?
So, yeah, it's a
Super
tough
mom.
woman.
Yeah, right on, man. So at what point then did martial arts creep into your life? Because you started quite young, yeah?
Yeah, it started when I always thought it was like I was 12, but I was actually 10, when I think about doing the math there. I couldn't do hockey. I always wanted to play hockey. I always wanted to do those things, but I wasn't in the school system and I wasn't in like a town.
Right, the commitment to travel.
Yeah.
And yeah.
But this one town, it was a Trail BC. My mom was teaching there 3 days a week. So I was just like, I saw Kung Fu movies and I'd go to the library and read like, karate or Taekwondo books. And I was like, oh man, I want to do that stuff. And then I always wanted to join one of those things and have like a gi and all that, but it was impossible with the gyms around. And I heard about this place called Pride Gym. It was my dad's.
Shout out to Pride Gym.
Pride Gym, man.
I got my own history.
Yeah. It was a tough gym, man. And I remember we went in there and like, my mom signed me up and she was like, oh man, I'm like, I don't know about this. And I was like, okay, I'll do it, and I started taking it. I was not a natural. Like I was,
Is that right?
I was slow at the beginning. And I remember the first time I sparred, I was like, no, well, I was starting for a while. And then I finally got to be able to kind of spar after a few years. And by the time I was 14, Glenn was like, okay, you want to come like train with the fighters? You're welcome to come and spar. And I was like,
At 14, you said?
Yeah, 14. Jeez. So I was doing it for like a few years, and it was like not natural. I sparred like in the kids class and whatnot, but it was very gentle, And the fighters back then, how the fight scene was back then. It was like, okay, it's a fight,
There's CTE were not 3 letters we ever put together.
Exactly. We did not know, And I remember the first time I trained, I got my ass kicked. I got my shit kicked in hard. And I remember like I wasn't gonna let anybody see it, but I was like in tears, man. Like I think it was my first or like after a bit, I remember I got my nose broken, and I was like didn't let anybody see, but I was like covered in blood, and I like left, and they're like, dude, this kid's never coming back, And this came back, and for that first year, like training with the fighters, I was 14. I just got my ass kicked where I had such anxiety going to that gym. I'd be like, God, please let me get through this. I'd be in the back change room, just like, all right, I can do this. I can do this.
Yeah,
and
man,
just
I hear you.
Whooped,
I recall driving, to the gym. You're like, oh, okay, I can feel it. And then by the time you're in the parking lot, you're starting to say, this is what we came for.
Yeah, exactly. It felt like a fight. Like, the anxiety you get before a fight, you're just like, oh, God, this is going to suck. This is really going to suck. And then I finally got to be where I could kind of hold my own. And then when I was 15, I was able to have my first fight. And Glenn was like, hey, you want to fight? And I was like, dude, I was just like, I just want to do this once. I don't ever want to do this again.
Really,
this one time, like, because I remember the first time I saw fighters, they all came in like for the runs when I was a kid, I was like 10, 11. And they all came to the gym like their tracksuits on, Pride Gym. And I was like, oh, dude, they're badass.
I want to be that.
I want to be that. You know what I mean? Because I was at that time, I was just like, I didn't feel like I was good at anything.
Right.
Where I was good with horses, but I didn't really recognize that. And I was just like, I was like a sweet kid, man. I was singing like 3 choirs.
Is that right? Hey?
Yeah, dude. I was like,
so can you sing today?
Dude, you don't want to hear it. I used to be able to have this one guy I fought kick me in the freaking throat, and that falsetto was gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's gone, man. But I remember seeing that. I was like, dude, I want to do that. And then I remember my first fight, like this at training camp. I was like, this is hell, dude. Like the ass kickings were coming still. And I remember my first fight was in the Roadhouse Rumble 5.
Shout out to Lee Mean in the Roadhouse Rumble, buddy. I was number 3.
Yeah.
Roadhouse Rumble number 3.
Yeah, you started before me. So I was at 15 and I fought somebody there. And I remember it was funny. Like I went in there and my one thing I was doing, like I was fighting like John Wayne, this like punches coming from way back.
Right.
But I was doing good technique. I remember my coach was just like, man, all that good technique was coming in, but Brent Russell's in there with me, and
nice.
I remember
shout out to him, yep.
the first, like after the first round, I was just puffing. He's like, somebody has been running. I was like, I'm so sorry. I'll be better next time. In between the rounds, there's this like funny memories like that, and I won a split decision, and then I was just like, I have one more. I'm gonna do one more fight, and then I fought in Vancouver, and I fought like a 32-year-old, and I TKO'd him in like 34 seconds.
How old are you?
I was at this time I was 15.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Literally twice your age.
Yeah, and then after that, I fought another guy, a guy from PFA, and it was a trail and didn't know how to cut weight, and I remember I passed out before the weigh-in, and I was like, boy, yeah, I'm like this, didn't eat anything or drink anything for like 2 days and cut this 10 pounds, you just had no idea what you were doing, and I was walking up the stairs to the gym, and I woke up and I was on there, and the Glenn was like, just drink a little water,
yeah.
Jeez,
just didn't
know what you were doing, but
That's
I remember that fight, it was the first time I was in a hard fight, And oh boy, I was fighting. I remember I just put everything I had in the first round, and he was still there. I was like, tired again. This sucks, you know. And
did it again.
Just you know, it was a war, but like it was a good experience, you know. And
I always want my beginners to go through that experience of you come back from round one and the only thing you want is for me to stop it.
Yeah.
But I won't let you.
Yeah.
You have to go through that.
Yeah.
You know? That's important.
Well, I remember like my first fight at the Roadhouse right before my fight. This one guy, he was a training partner, and his first fight too, and he was back there throwing up like all over the place, and he won his fight. And Glenn was like, "See what he's doing? Like, you better be like that after. You better be throwing up, you know." And I was like, "Okay." And it was like, man, props to Pride Gym because they made us tough. And I remember for the longest time, when I started, Brent was the only adult that was fighting.
Okay.
We were all just kids, and we were all fighting 30-year-olds, you know? So, like, and Glenn didn't care. He's like, oh, you're the same weight. It's all good, you know?
That's right. It's just number otherwise.
Yeah, you know, and, like, he just, like, that doesn't really exist much anymore, you know?
Right. Which is funny because as a 41-year-old man, looking back on it, if somebody told me, you're going to fight a 15-year-old. Most people, like, I'm not fighting a kid. I'd be like, oh, God, this kid's got endless energy, I bet.
Yeah.
Like, he's going to be a stud.
Yeah, exactly. Or, like, I can't imagine losing to a 15-year-old.
No
like,
kidding, man.
Dude, I'd kill myself. You know? Like, I'd be horrified. I was like, I'm never doing this again.
And at the same time, I won my fight. Who'd you fight? Oh, this 15-year-old kid in grade 10.
Yeah, beat his ass. You know, that'd be awful, dude. You know, it is, like, kind of jumping. It is wild because I have a fighter.
Right.
And
what's his name?
His name's Matthias Herman, number one amateur in the ICAF World Rankings for
Shout out to Matthias.
3 years. You know, he's a little beast, super good. But he had a fight years back, and not going to say who the name of the coach was, but there was literally a year difference between them. And my kid TKO'd him, and he's like, "Oh, your fighter's 18." I'm like, "No, look at his birthday." He's like, "I'm looking right now. He's 18." I was like, "Yeah, but they fought a week and a half ago, and then he was 17. Even if he was 18, they have not even a year, like over a year between their birthdays."
Right.
He's like, that fight's bullshit, blah blah blah. I was like, partner, like your guy, you know,
don't be silly.
Yeah, you know, I mean, just relax. Nothing happened. He just was pretty upset about that, and his fighter fought hard, you know.
Just didn't win,
just got TKO'd, but he was like pretty upset that it was like a year and 2 months between them, you know, which is wild. It's just a different kind of scene, you know, from when we came up, you know.
Sure, yeah. Everything's so what feels like meticulous now. You got your striking coach, you got your bathing coach, you got your toothpaste coach, you know, like. Yep. Got all these coaches. Yeah, right? We had none of that shit.
Yeah, your coach mom, you know, it's kind of wild, you know.
I mean, shit. Half the time we didn't even have like cloth shin guards. Like, I don't know. Like,
no,
I grew up I went to an MMA gym where my first time sparring was in little gloves and no other gear.
Yep.
I left with this massive black eye from taking an elbow. Shout out to you, Chad Hemza. But it's just what we did.
Yeah.
It's just what we knew, right?
I mean, like, you know, it's cool to try and look after the fighter, but like, very first fight, like we had to wear cloth shin guards. After that, everything was bare shin.
Yep.
You know?
Even us. I mean, I'm sure you're in the same boat. Chris McMillan, his second fight, as far as we knew, was a helmet and shin guards, and the other coach just comes over and is like, "Do you guys really want to wear this?" And we're like, "No." Yeah. So we just took them off and off we went.
Yeah, exactly. my kid's first fight, we went up to Seattle because I was like, man, if you want to do this, like, you know, he was like 17. He fought like a 20 odd
Friday night fights.
It wasn't Friday night fights. It was I can't remember the guy's name. So awful.
From Tacoma, right?
No, from right around Seattle.
Dude, I know.
Thai guy.
Yeah.
Really, oh my gosh. You see this? Oh, please don't be mad at me.
Sarab,
yes.
Boom.
My
Shout
guy.
out to you, Sarab. Sorry, buddy. Been a while.
I'm sorry, man. Totally
Happy to bring up your name again, my friend.
Legend. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But he went up there and fought one of their guys, and he won. It was awesome. But then after that, we had to go back to California, and he was fighting up there, and you know, everything was headgear and shin guards. I was like, man, this is kind of crazy. And then finally got rid of that, and he was able to fight, you know, bare shin and do the real deal, you know?
Yeah. And for those who don't know, cloth shin guards to bare shins, when you kick an elbow and you kick a knee, you feel it. Yeah. But other than that, man, those things are a false sense of protection.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
It feels the same. You're so adrenalized, it feels the same.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah.
But, man, so what were we weighing at 15 years old fighting?
15. My very first fight was 165, and I was like 175, and then I had a growth spurt right there, and I started fighting 175 my next fight.
So you're a big kid.
I was a big kid. Everyone thought I was going to be like a super heavyweight, you know? And then when I turned 18, that's when I really started to get good. Like, I remember I started to fight. I was walking around 195 when I was 16 years old, and I was fighting 185.
Holy Jesus.
And then I just went through a tear, you know, like things kind of switched for me. And I wasn't getting bullied in the gym or anymore, and nobody was able to like best.
Now you're the
anymore.
lion eating.
Yeah, it was like, it was bad. You know what I mean? Because I thought like, back then you're like, it's okay, it's sparring, it's a fight. You know what I mean?
Right.
And but I won on a tear. I got to be like the number 4th amateur in Canada.
Oh, no shit.
Knocked out like 5 guys in a row.
No shit.
It was awesome, dude. It was everything was head kick knockout. It was like some highlights on there. And then that next year was going to be my year. It was going to be the year where like, oh man, you're like taking all the titles, And my mom and I, we were going home to feed horses, and we hit black ice in this pretty gnarly car wreck. And I just remember I was sleeping. I woke up and she was like, damn, like we were going like sideways and nearly hit the Jeep Cherokee that was coming up. And she got it to maneuver. We would just missed the Cherokee, and then we flipped, and I wasn't wearing a seatbelt. And I was ejected out of my car, and I went way over this bank.
What?
Yeah, man. I woke up, and this little tree ended up stopping the car from crushing me. I woke up, and there was a tire like right by my head, and I was just like, I knocked out this guy a week before, and I was having flashbacks of like me knocking the guy out, and then flashes of me having to feed horses. And then I was like, oh man, I was like, Mom, I think we're in a car wreck. And I was like seeing blood all over me. I was like, man, I think we're in a car wreck. And then she was just like in the car, and she was kind of moaning a bit. And I was like, damn. And I was like, I got to get up and get you. And then I tried to get up, and my bones hit each other in my leg, and I thought it broke my hips.
Oh,
and I was just like,
my God.
Try to get up and get it again. I was like, dude, I can't move. My hips are broken. And her arm was shattered. Bone sticking out of her arm. Her wrist was like shattered. It was gnarly. And we thought that was it. Like the car, we were like soaked in gas.
Dude, my palms are sweating, bro.
No, it was wild, man. We thought that was it. Car started to like turn over and start to spark, and we were like in gas, So these farmers came over and they saw us. I was like, dude, get her out. And they got me first, picked me up by my leg because I broke my femur,
Oh my God.
And my bones hit each other. They got me out of the car. Got
I know
me
that
away
feeling.
From it. You broke your femur?
No, but broken my arm, and you can feel them click together.
Yeah. Not like it's the weirdest thing because you can hear. Yeah, you hear it. It's not fun. So they got me out, got my mom out. Minutes after they got her out, it was engulfed in flames. It was wild. So, and I remember the paramedic. He was one of the guys. He was one of the announcers for the trail fights, and he's like, "Hey, bud," and I was like, "Hey, man," I was like, "Do you think I'm gonna be able to fight in trail in a few months?" And he's like, "Yeah, I don't know if that's," it's like, "You're a stud, maybe."
Yeah, maybe.
So they ended up taking us to a clinic in Nelson instead of taking us to a hospital. So I was sitting around there. They were doing X-rays where like, dude, my leg's over here, and I was bleeding internally for like hours.
Holy shit, man.
It was wild, So they finally were like, okay, we better take you to the hospital. So then we had to drive all the way to trail, which is another hour. And this time, like, I had the car accident probably 5-6 hours ago, So got into the hospital, which is like, they got me on all kinds of morphine.
Of course.
And we're waiting for the surgeries. And I remember I was like back in the surgery room. We're all waiting, all these people. And I was like, I need more medicine. I need more opium. My mom's just like, he's seen too many Westerns. I'm sorry, So it was wild. We had the surgery, and I was in the hospital for like 2 weeks. And I got really sick. And they're like, hey, something's not right. And I was like, starting to throw up blood and stuff. And then like they're like, oh, you got blood clots in your lungs, And shit got pretty sketchy there for a second. So they had to fly me to Kamloops, and I was there for another week. And then after that, got to come home, and it was just like that we had to move off the mountain then. We still had the property, but like we can't be going up there on the snowmobile,
Sure.
And that to me was like culture shock, having to like live in a town.
Oh, I bet. You were a fucking hermit.
No, I hated it. Like I enjoyed coming in and being in the gym, but like, and I was on crutches, and Glenn was really cool where like I was still helping out like with the fight team. Like I was on crutches, and I would like literally stand up in a corner and have bounce off the ropes, and other fighters that were ready, I would hold pads to them and just have to stay in a corner and hold pads,
Sure.
So he had me involved in that stuff, but it was this miserable. I was on like blood thinners, Coumadin,
Really, hey?
And doing that, but I remember like,
sorry man, we'll bring it just a touch closer.
Oh yeah, you bet. And I remember that when the time came for it, like my parents were like, we're not gonna move back to the mountain, and I was just like, damn, like I don't think I can do this. And that previous summer, I got certified for horseshoeing when I was 15 to shoe horses.
Okay.
And I wanted to go cowboy, and I was like, I think I'm out of here, So I went up to the Northwest Territories, and I was a wrangler for like a hunting outfit for that summer. And I was like, okay, I'll do this, and I'll come back to fighting.
Bro, this is a fucking incredible story.
It was fun, It was fun.
Sorry.
And I went up there, and it was like that was my first time away from home, like working away.
Right, okay.
And I was like, man, this is going to be cool. So I was up there, and the first day of work was 19 hours all together, you know. And we were just riding in there.
At what age?
I was 17.
Holy shit, man.
And I remember when we were going in there, they're like, "Oh, your bedroll's too big." So they had a float plane. They're like, "We'll take your bedroll in there," and then they packed me like the wrong bedroll. It was like a kid's like Dalmatian like cotton thing.
Oh no!
And it was like it's Northern Territory. It's on the other side of Alaska in Canada, you know. And it was a wet day, and all the people that we took out there that were the hunters, you know, they had these nice tents we had to set for them. And me and the 3 other wranglers, we all huddled in this tarp, and it was like raining, and we were all soaked. And it was brutal. Second day was 17 hours, same deal. Third day we finally got there was like 15 hours.
It's like Navy SEAL training.
Yeah, dude, it was rank. And remember, we got there. We didn't know we were going to get paid until we got there. And after after about a week, they're like, "Okay, so your pay is $70 a day," you know. And we're like, kind of like me and this other wrangler. We're looking at each other. We're both like kids, you know. And when they walked away, I looked at him. I was like, "Dude, $70 a day." He's like, "Dude," I was like, "We're gonna be freaking rich." I know. We just had no idea. I was like, "Oh my god, we're good." We landed the jackpot.
No
you know?
shit, eh?
And you know, that was a fun experience. Then after that, I was like, man, I kind of want to keep doing this, but I want to work around because I didn't, you know, I grew up with horses, but I didn't know much about cattle. So I took all my old horseshoe instructor, Gary Johnston, Canadian Farrier School, you know.
Beauty.
Yeah, it was cool. And I called him and I was like, "Hey, man, do you know anybody that's looking for cowboys? You know, and I need to learn about cows." I had this certified guy that works at the Pitcher Butte Corvan Race feedlot, and it's like one of the biggest privately owned feedlots in Canada. They had 4 feedlots within like a 10-mile square radius, and each feedlot held like 25,000 head of cattle.
Oh my god!
It was big. So I didn't know anything about sick cows, and that place was just like going and learning about.
That's a factory.
Oh yeah. You learn about, like, you know, you're in there, you're riding, and you're looking for sick cows and learning what to give them, and like there's a lot of sick cows and that.
I suppose so.
Yeah, it's not like a ranch where it's like very, very chill in that aspect. So I worked there for a little over a year, and that was rank because, like, you know, met some amazing people there. You know, there's a guy I'm going to be riding colts with, like, end of the month when I'm down here, and probably one of the best horse trainers in Western Canada, in my opinion. You know, Bruce Christie. And he was like a great influence. But other than that, like, there was a rough crowd in there. You know,
is that right? Eh?
Rough crowd, and I was like living by myself, like right by the place. Didn't have a car, didn't have like a phone, and it was like lonely, man. You know, but it was cool. It was cool. So I got to do that, and then after that, I went and did some pasture work here and there. Then I went to Saskatchewan, and I was working on a ranch up in the Cypress Hills of Maple Creek, and I was riding like 10 colts a day, you know, starting young horses.
Oh yeah.
And I did that for like a good 7 or 8 months there, and I ended up breaking my wrist, got bucked off a horse.
Shit.
Broke my wrist, and I was like, all right, well, gotta go home and heal up. So I went home and just kind of chilling for like a good month and a half.
Where's home?
Home is home is the mountains, the Valhalla Mountains, but I was like in trail.
Okay.
Trail's not my home. Sorry, Pride Gym's from there, but it's not really where I'm from, you know. And I was just like visiting my mom and staying there. So I was like, what's the next step? Where do I want to go, Cowboy? And you know, I've got a bit of a resume now. So all right, let's see what happens. I sent my resume to Douglas Lake Ranch. And at that time, Douglas Lake was like a 500,000 acre ranch, and it's a 1,000,000 acre ranch now. Like, it just keeps on expanding, and you have to be pretty handy to work there. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that. My dad worked there back in the late 70s.
Okay.
And I was like, man, it'd be cool to work there. That's like where all the guys go. So I heard back, and they got the job, and I was like, no way, man, that's wild. So went there.
Where's this?
And this is outside of Merritt, PC.
Okay, yep.
And that's like real cowboy country. There's so many big ranches out there. So went there, and I was just in over my head, man. I had no idea, like, I could work cows, and I was like cowboy and stuff. But there's levels, you know.
Sure.
So when I got there, the work ethic came into play. I was like, I'm gonna make sure I outwork everybody, so I keep this job. So
Right.
And
we talked about that earlier. The work ethic's already there.
Oh yeah, man. Like I worked my ass off, and like just being around those guys when I was there made me handy, or made me like a better hand. Like, those guys were like veterinarians pretty much. Like, we were the calving season was nuts. Like, these guys could do cesareans on breech bursts. Like,
is that right?
They were handy guys. So I was there for a good while, and I got to meet some of my best friends I worked with, and then ended up leaving there, Cowboy, to a few other spots. And I was like, you know what? I either want to go to like Australia and work there, or I want to go to California and Cowboy. And I ended up going to California, and I was at this ranch out there for about a year and a half.
How do you decide between two opposite ends of the world, California and Australia? How does that come about?
I was I think I've watched Man from Snowy River probably too many times when I was a kid. You know? And I was like, they don't rope over there, man. They don't, they don't have, not a rope. So I want to go to California and be like, still doctoring cows and be able to rope.
I know nothing about cowboying. I never would say California. Well, I mean, I get it. Maybe
there's some pretty big ranches out there. So the ranch I worked out there was like 35,000 acres.
Like, that's enormous.
Compared to Douglas Lake, it's tiny. Like, Douglas Lake's 500,000, you know?
I'm impressed if somebody has 2 acres.
Yeah, exactly, right? This is a ranch. You go around, you go around, like, L.A., and some people are like, oh, yeah, I got a ranch. Just like,
I bet you do.
Yeah.
A backyard.
It's like 10 acres. There was a stable. Nothing wrong with that,
Sure.
But, like,
It's not just a real working ass.
It's not like a cattle ranch,
Right. Jesus.
But, and that's not a diss at all, But
of course.
There's like, it's different between like a ranch and a stable, But so I was out there for a good year and a half, and I got to learn some fun things. And I had I was just me and the owner. The owner was like this 67-year-old guy, and I was pretty much on my own on half of his ranch. He was on the other half, and it was a fun experience. And I was out there, and it was fun. And then I remember when I was at Douglas Lake, I was like having this kind of like moment where I was like riding cows. I was like, man, if I do go out to California, I just give it a shot, because like you don't really go to the homies that you're cowboying with. And like, no, man, I think I want to become an actor. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I was always like cowboy, and I was like, man, it'd be kind of fun to be like a cowboy on the silver screen. That'd be
sure.
Cool. And I actually did talk about this with one of my best friends that was at Douglas Lake, Riley Miller, and he's like a homie. He runs a ranch, the EP out here.
Okay.
It's a ranch I couldn't remember.
Oh, there you
last
go.
night we were talking
I gotcha.
about.
Yep.
Yeah, it's EP, or I think that's the ranch's name. I don't know, but he runs a pretty significant ranch out here, and he's a cow boss. And we were both like having a night and was watching a movie, and I was like, dude, it'd be fun to like act. Huh? I'd really like to try that. And he's like, yeah, I never really thought about that. I was like, man, that'd be cool.
That just came out of the blue?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's always like something like I said. You don't really talk to like other cowboys, like, yeah, I want to go to Hollywood and try this out, But I talked to him about that, and I totally forgot. I was like, damn, that's wild. But I remember I was on night shift, riding heifers, and I was just like talking to my horse. I was like, man, I think I want to try this out. Like, go out there, and I'm gonna give it like 2 months, and like if nothing happens, I'll know I did it,
Right.
So 2 months turned into like 10 years.
That's it, man. Hey, that's it.
It was funny. So I moved out to L.A., and that was talk about being like in the jungle for me. Like, that was the wilderness.
So for the most part, if I heard this right, BC, Northwest Territories, Saskatchewan, Los Angeles. I got that.
Yeah. Yeah, it was wild, man.
It's quite the change.
So I was out there.
Speaking of culture shock.
I had no idea, and I didn't have a license still until I was like, I was in my I was like 23.
Is that right?
When I was done, and I was just because I don't regret it, because I'd go to these ranches and I was stuck there, and part of me was like, damn, I wish I had a license where I was like going and being able to be social, but I was able to save money that way.
Right.
So that was cool. But I went out to LA, and I got my license, but I was like looking for a vehicle, so I was taking public transportation for like a good 9 months.
Okay.
And I had I was going from like Venice, because I was living in Venice, to like North Hollywood to go to like acting classes. And I was out there, and I had like a big ass Bowie knife on me, because I was like, I was gonna get mugged. And I was just like looking around, and I was like such a country boy, dude.
Right.
It was hilarious. And I remember when I went, the first time I went to class, I was like, oh, dude, I'm screwed. There's all these models, like male models there. I was like, dude, this sucks.
One of us is standing out here.
I know. I was like, this is not going to work out for me. Everybody's good looking out here,
So were you still, just while this is going on, are you still training, or did you let training go?
So I was, during those times, I was just doing my training myself, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was always training, but I was just like doing what I need from Pride Gym, And I would go to a gym here and there when I could,
Right.
But not really,
Yeah.
I was just kind of like let it go, and I never thought I'd fight again. So I was in Venice, and I saw this gym, and I was like, dude, like, I haven't trained in a minute. So I went in there and hit pads with the guy, and this guy, trained some pretty decent, like he worked with Ray Seffel and whatnot.
Damn.
And I was like, all right, cool, man. Like, like he's like, do you want a job like teaching? And I was like, yeah, sure, man. He's like, you should fight again. I was like, I don't know, man. Like, I'm like 24. I'm probably too old, And I thought about it for a bit, and I was, this really focused on the acting. And then at the end of that year, I was like, you know what? I just want to have one more, see if I still got it. So we trained, and we went to the fight card and all that, and I ended up fighting this guy. And it was pretty much like I went in as an independent almost, you know? And I think everybody thought, like, dude, this kid is screwed, And
what year was this?
This was 2009.
Okay.
Yeah. So it'd been like 6 years since I fought or something like that.
Okay.
And went in there, and I just, like, respected the guy. He was a lot bigger than me. I throttled him and ended up like they took him out on a stretcher. I necked him and like he was stiff for a while.
Damn.
They literally took him on a stretcher, had a neck brace on, and then
Shit.
it was cheesy. I came out and I was like, this is the one time I'm gonna fight again. I'm Scottish. I'm gonna wear a kilt. So I remember going out there and like this is like LA, and everyone's like, dude, who's this guy in a dress? You know what I mean?
Right.
It was the funniest thing. And I'm looking back and like, maybe the kilt not the best idea, but it was funny. Like after that, I was like, maybe I gotta have another one. And I just kind of got hooked. But I had like bad luck. Like the guy that was that helped me out in that fight, like he was a good trainer, but like next few fights in a row literally didn't show up to corner me. So I'd be like,
I'm sorry, just didn't show.
Yeah, didn't show. Didn't show up. And
hell of coaching.
I don't think there's a lot of I don't know, maybe that's happened to a lot of people, but I remember seeing this one guy. He fought in a Mike Miles card when I was a kid. I was like, hey, dude, didn't you fight in Mike Miles before? He's like, yeah. I was like, hey, man, my coach didn't show up. Can you wrap my hands and can you corner me for this fight? And he's like, yeah, sure, man, right? And I went on a big tear. Was winning fights like that. It was nuts.
Wait, that became normal?
It kind of I had 3 fights in a row with that guy.
Dang.
Where it didn't happen. I was like, at the end of that, I was like, hey, man, I don't think this is going to work out. And he's like, yeah, it's okay, bro. Like, no hard feelings. I was like, yeah thanks, man.
Clearly, you already had that in your head before me.
Yeah, it was wild. And at that time, I was just like kind of fighting independently. And then Fabricio Verdum opened up a gym, and I went in there and I started like sparring with Fabricio a lot and a lot of those like Brazilian guys.
How was that?
Dude, Fabricio is hard.
Yeah,
he's really
big
hard.
Dude.
He's a big dude, man. Like, yeah, they go hard there, Yep. So I was just getting some sparring in there, and then I met this a good friend of mine. His name's Andrew Hagar, and he had like 2 smokers,
Okay.
And I was like, dude, do you want to fight? Like, we should really like get after this. And he's like, yeah, man, we should do this. And like, he had 2 fights, you know what I mean? And I had like my experience, and we were just kind of like 2 kids that just wanted to fight,
Right, nice.
So he ended up this like holding pads for me. And we both were like learning to train, like to kind of do this together. And he was helping me out with that. And he was in the corner for all those fights. And then I ended up like leaving Fabricio's. I was just kind of teaching for him. I wasn't really part of their fight team,
Gotcha.
I was just like a sparring partner there. And I started training with Anthony Hardock.
Damn, bad dude.
Learned a lot of good stuff from Anthony. I was with him. I trained with him 2 different times. I was the first time for like a year. And we had a lot of good people there. We had like one guy who used to be part of Team Sauer, Nico Verezin. He was just like a badass, fought Sanchai.
Yeah,
and he was only there for like guys would kind of come and go. He was there for like a good 2 months, but I learned a lot from him. And then we had other guys like Jared Hammond fought in the UFC a bunch, and we had Vladimir Matyashenko.
Oh, yeah.
Ronda was with Ronda Rousey for a little bit.
So you got to train with all these people?
Yeah,
cool.
It was cool. Kamal Shalroos, he was with us. He fought some pretty big names in the UFC. Yep. And I was there for a bit, but we were all kind of just coming and going. And I was there for about a year, and then I left, and me and my buddy Andrew were still training together. And I was like, we were both just really dedicated to it. So I was like, let's just make it be the 2 of us, And it was wild that we did well, but like Andrew wasn't fighting. He just had those 2 smokers, and he just was kind of cornering me. So I remember we had our first fight, really just the 2 of us. And we were just kind of going over all the stuff I knew from Pride Gym, the stuff we learned from Anthony, and just from what we were doing. And
so kind of a Ronin, you know what I mean?
Dude, it was like when I think about it, I was like, God, it means we didn't get killed, Like we were just doing the best we could. And remember, we went to like Arizona, and we fought this local guy out there, and we TKO'd him. And then he went and fought out in Calgary. And I was like, oh man, I remember like Mike Miles, and I was like, I should hit him up and see if I can fight in Canada. That'd be really cool. So I hit up Mike Miles, and he's like, have you not had a lot more fights? I was like, no, I've got like 15 fights or something like that, as an amateur, and blah-de-da-da. And he's like, all right, I'll bring you out. I'll have you fight one of our guys, So I came out, and my goal always, I never thought I was like, I knew I was good, but I didn't think I was that good, And I always just wanted to fight for a Canadian title and like win that. And he's like, oh, cool. We'll get a North American title. And I was like, dang. This is crazy.
Deal.
So went and fought like a hometown guy of theirs, and dude was like really, really good fighter, and we were having a really good one, and I ended up winning that fight.
Who'd you fight?
Mark McKinnon.
Shout out to Mark. Love Mark.
Great fighter, man. Total gentleman, We both had it was a fun fight,
Yep. Yeah, good dude.
So we did that, and I got that title. I was like, damn. So then after that, I got back, and Master Song, he hit me up. He's like, you want to fight out here?
Vancouver?
Yeah, Vancouver, one of the OG. He is the OG,
Sure is, man.
First one to ever have the first Muay Thai gym in Canada, I believe.
I believe so, yeah.
and he brought me out, and I fought Mike Downey,
Mm-hmm.
and he was like, back in those days, like he's fighting pro and amateur because like you could,
Yeah, yeah.
And I remember going down there, and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, he's gonna be tough," and I'm knocking him out in like 30 seconds,
Right.
And I finally got that Canadian title, and then after that, like I was kept on fighting, and then that next year, I got the opportunity to fight for WKA world title,
Where was that?
And that was in Medicine Hat.
Oh, no shit. Did
Yeah.
you fight down there?
Yeah, they brought me down for Saka, right? Saka.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And
Good
they
people.
flew in a guy who's a British and European champ. So it wasn't like one of these made up like, oh yeah, you're gonna fight a guy from like
Right.
New York or
not
from
even
LA
down the street for a world title.
Yeah,
Right. Who'd you fight? Do you remember?
His name was he was called the Hacker. His name was this is so terrible. What was his name?
It's all right, man.
And we're friends on Facebook.
No
It's
disrespect,
awful.
but
yeah, but they called him the Hacker.
the nickname the Hacker alone is
yeah.
not
he
so
was
good.
known for his low kicks.
Oh,
but
okay, well now that makes sense.
At this time, I started training with my idol. I remember I was working in a bar, and I was like when I fought Mike Downey, I started training with Rob Kaman, and
Fucking legend.
He was
Real legend.
Glenn's favorite fighter and my favorite fighter growing up. And I remember I was just like, I saw him walking down the street, and I was like, dude, you don't know, like you're my favorite fighter. Like I would love to start training with you. Like, and he's like, oh, you get some people together, this
You
and
ran
that.
into him on the street?
Yeah, he was walking by my bar, and I was like bouncing, and I was like, dude, like I'm like, you don't understand, like I try to fight like you, like you're my role model. And he's like, oh yeah, he hears it all the time.
Sure,
He's
sure.
like, oh yeah, thanks man, thanks,
Yeah.
And we exchanged numbers, and I got like a group of guys, and we were going to train. And this was like right around before I fought Mike. This was right after I fought Mark. you
Okay.
know? And he's like, yeah, we can work something out. And at this time too, I was training at a boxing gym. Doing some work with like Justin Fortune. He fought like Lennox Lewis.
Yeah, yeah.
Manny Pacquiao's conditioning coach, and Jeremy Williams. I was working with him. He was a 2-time boxing world champion, Hall of Famer, and I was working with really good boxers. And he would come into Fortunes, and he's like, yeah, we can get something worked out, And then I had all these guys who were going to come do this private with me, and we all had the money put together. And all the guys like bailed out the day before.
Sorry, man.
And,
Give me 1 second. I'm just going to lock the door.
Oh, no worries.
Sorry about that.
Oh, no
Class is
worries.
coming up here.
So I was talking about Fortunes, or
Yep, that's right.
Yeah. So I was like training at Fortunes, and I got all these guys together to come do this private. Everyone bailed out, and I told Rob like, hey man, sorry about wasting your time. Like everyone bailed out of me. He's like, well, I'm teaching a private at Fortunes. Come through. You're gonna be there anyways. It's like, all right, cool. So I came up there, did some drills with this private, like he was doing. He was just like watching. And he's like, all right, cool. Like I'll hold some pads for you. So ended up holding for like 10 rounds for me.
Damn.
And he was like, oh yeah, nice. And he was just like, there's things you can do to emulate somebody.
Yep.
But you're not doing their technique. Like he just taught me things where everything you could feel the bones hitting like through the pads. Like his technique was just like.
And he was a hard-hitting dude,
Yeah.
man. I had other words there, but chose not to use them.
Yeah, dude.
Hard
hitting mother effer, dude.
Yep,
Yep. And just a bad dude. And he was just like, really was badass. And he's like, hey, tomorrow I'll meet you here. And I was like, really? It's like, yeah. And then we got to be like that, like 6 months. We were training every day. It was badass, and just like,
Dang, hey.
really this elevated my style to this whole other level. And that's not putting down anybody else I trained with, but
Of course. That's going to happen when you train with a real legend.
Yeah,
ping pong, fighting, swimming, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and just Rob was a certain way of teaching where they kind of like, if you studied it for a long time, you can speak that language. You know what I mean? Like,
Okay.
as far as like you pick things up, and like he really was. It was good. You know what I mean? Like he just taught me really well. And then Rob was like, he's a gypsy. You know what I mean? So he'd be.
Sure.
He was weird there for 6 months, and then he was gone. He'd do seminars. He'd just like, be like, oh, where are you? Like, oh, I'm back in. I'm in Paris right now. Oh, I'm like, I'm with. I remember he like FaceTime. He's like, oh, I'm with John Skarbowski. You know what I mean?
Oh, nice.
He'd be like, oh, hey,
Shout out to
what's
Skarbowski.
up? And he'd just be like, I'd be like, oh, I thought you were still here. And he was like, no, I'm gone.
Oh, yeah.
But
real
every
gypsy.
time you get to spend with that guy, it was just like knowledge, and it was like that for years, where he'd come back, be here for a while, then be gone. But like every time you got to be with him, you just like got 10 years of like
Right, just absorb the knowledge, the experience, right?
So
right.
it was an awesome experience there, and I continued fighting, and then I was like, okay, I need something like a little more steady. And I went back to with Anthony for a bit, and I started like fighting pro, and things were going pretty well, and I got started fighting for WCK,
Nice.
and I just started really kind of getting my groove there, and WCK kind of became my home. And in between there, I'd be kind of there and with Fortunes, going back
Okay.
and forth, you know? And I remember I wasn't the best because I managed myself.
Right,
you know?
right.
So I would be taking fights, like I just wanted to fight all the time. All
Right.
the time. So I'd fight way below my weight class, cutting extreme amounts of weight, or I'd be like, oh yeah, I'll fight heavyweight, whatever. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like I was very like poorly managed.
Just get me in there.
Yeah, get me in there. And I did well. Like I think I did pretty well, you know, but like I took some fights where I was like not the smartest, but it got me a good experience. So I finally built myself up pretty good where I got to fight for the WBC title, national.
Nice.
And was going pretty well for me, but I ended up getting cut right to my skull. Like you could see my skull. My homie, my boy Andrew, he was in my corner, and he was just like, dude, I see your skull. You know what I mean? Like it was not good.
That's a nice looking Muay Thai tattoo you got.
Thanks. You know, like shout out to Jake Poss. You know what I mean? And you know, ended up like the fight got called. I ended up getting Vaseline, blood in my eyes, and we didn't have adrenaline. You know, it was
Right.
it was pretty. We both learned a lot from that. You know, and then after that, I was like, you know, I need to keep on. You know, had to build myself back up, and I ended up leaving Dynamics at that time because it was always this, you know, there and then back. And I started training with a guy named Chris Riley. And Chris was like one of the OGs in California. He had Bomb Squad.
Okay.
Originally, he fought the King's Birthday, and he was a really good, and he had, you know, worked under Rob a lot. And he was like, dude, you know, he saw that fight. He's like, that was your fight, man. He's like, you know, like maybe come train a little bit, and like, you know, if I'm able to work with you. But at this time, he retired from like the fight game, sold Legends. He had Legends, you know.
Okay.
And sold Legends, and he was like a DJ now. You know, he's like, I want a DJ, bro. And Chris is a character where he's a funny guy. He's like got his vape pen, you know, and he'll be talking and be like, Charles, like I get it, like, you know, when I couldn't get people to fight me, you gotta go to Thailand, bro, like, and like get that experience. Like when I fought the King's Birthday in front of like 50,000 people, it's just like it's a different kind of thing, you know. You'll understand one day. But he's a character, you know. He's like the funniest guy in so Hollywood, you know. What I mean? Yeah. He's a funny dude. So we started training together, and I racked up 5 good wins and like a lot of good TKOs with like elbows, and he leveled me up on a lot of like other aspects where I was power fighting before, like, oh, I'm gonna like hit you and like chop the leg, where he got me on this other kind of thing where he did pro boxing too, where I started feints and started to be a little smarter in some aspects too, you know.
Nice, yeah.
And I trained with him. We had 5 good wins in a row, all stoppages. And then I went to Thailand, and I went to this little gym called Suet Stadium. It's in Phuket. And I had a couple fights over there, fought quite a bit over there.
How long did you stay out there for?
I was only there for like 6 weeks, but I got quite a few fights.
Nice.
You know,
nice.
They keep you active over there.
Yeah,
you know?
hell yeah, man.
Came back, and then where did I fight next after that? I fought for ACB, and that was like a Russian promotion.
Okay.
And had a good little showing on there. And then built myself back up. I was on like a good 7 or 8 more like with fights in Thailand. It was a good win streak. And I got to fight for the WBC national title again. I built my way back up to that, and I fought an old training partner of mine, because I forgot to, like, I wasn't really trained with him, but you just kind of go around and spar, and I got to train a bit with Ramon Decker's brother, Carlo Deckers.
Yeah.
And I was more like just a guest, you know what I mean?
Sure.
In these places, you're guests, and like, you know, I was having a good training partner. His name was Casey Green.
Okay.
He fought in Glory a whole bunch. I think when we fought each other, he was like ranked number 6 in Glory.
Okay.
So I was supposed to fight somebody else, and that guy dropped out. And then Dennis was like, yo, you're gonna fight Casey. And like me being the great manager, I was like, okay, cool, you know. But I remember we were like friends, like we're still friends, you know. Like we don't really speak too often, you know. But this, you know, life goes on. But it was kind of odd to me, because I never really fought somebody that I trained with, you know.
Right.
And we had an awesome fight.
Did you second guess that when you found out who your opponent was? Were you like, ooh, or just like, yeah, well, let's go?
Not as far as the skill, because we sparred together a whole bunch. You know what I mean? And like, you know,
you're feeling good about that?
I was pretty confident, you know.
Okay.
I knew, like, but it was a while since we fought, and like he was in Fighting Glory. He fought a lot of like big names in Glory. And it was a while. It was been like a year. It was like 2 years since we sparred and stuff. And I was like, it's gonna be interesting. But I was always they would ask me to fight somebody. I would say, yeah, you know, I didn't think about it, you know. But the only thing I was, you know, I'm a good guy too, where I also am like, oh man, man, like, I hope it's not going to be weird hitting somebody like that you like. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's the only thing I was worried about. Is like, is it going to be hard for me? Because like, you know, I think at that time he had a kid too, and I was like, dude, this guy's like a dad. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, and all
Don't
that.
send that guy necessarily out on a neck pad stretcher.
Yeah, and if he was a banger, man. Like that guy, he would fight anybody too. Like,
Nice.
He was a banger, and we had an awesome fight. You know what I mean? Like we went 5 rounds.
When was this?
This was 2018.
Okay.
Yeah, July of 2018.
Okay.
And it was a great fight, but like it was super technical. Like didn't land anything significant on me, but it was like he was full pressure and I was landing. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So I was like being very evasive and moving backwards, but just anything I wanted to. I was landing a lot of low kicks. Hands were awesome, scoring good, and then I got that title, and that was just like, dude, it was badass.
Nice.
You know, it was a great feeling, you know.
Everybody likes that green too, right?
Dude, it was cool. It was really
Right
cool.
on.
You know, got that and kind of continued from there. Fought for the IKKC international title. Well, and then I defended it after that. And went back to Thailand, and I went and trained at AKA and got to train with Lamson Kran.
Lamson Kram.
And I
Chuwatana.
was there for like good 6 weeks, and I probably got 80 hours on pads with that guy, you know?
Awesome, man. We had this little conversation. I'm a big fan of him. He looks nice, but when he's fighting, he's so mean.
Yeah.
And I fully admit, like you know, you can maybe break it down a bit, but if I saw Mr. Lamson Krem have pads on, I'll call him Mr.
Yeah.
And he said, "Hey, come here," I would be shit scared.
Yeah.
I would be shit scared. What was it like training under him?
Well, this is funny. So the first, when we got there, we were AKA, and they forgot to pick us up at the airport, you know?
Okay.
So we got like a taxi there, and then it was like probably 1 a.m., and then we ended up sleeping on the gym floors that night this guy was with, you know?
Of course.
And the next morning we woke up, and then we were just kind of shadow boxing for you know, pads and all that, and Lon was kind of watching me. He's like, "Hey, you fight, huh?" And I was like, yeah, you know, I fight. I just had that ACB fight. And he's like, "Okay, I'll pad you today." And I was like, "All right, cool." And he patted me, and he was so respectful, and he was just like, "Oh, good." And he was just being such a good coach.
Nice.
And he's like, "Okay, you train with me now. You're my guy." And every day, it was awesome, dude. And he was just a really, really great coach. And I'll say this, like he's like a big guy. He's like 6'1".
Yeah, man. Yeah.
You know? I outweigh him, but he's like a big Thai. He's probably like $180, you know?
Right. Yep.
And I've never been thrown, like I have a pretty decent clinch, you know?
Right.
And I've never been thrown around like that.
Is that
clinch.
right, eh?
Just manhandled me, you know?
Like, take you back to novice, back to white belt.
Yeah, man. Like there's levels of this, man. That guy was a bad ass. He is a badass, you know?
Hell yeah.
So that was great. Had a few fights under him. Won a little stadium title out there, you know?
Nice.
And it was fun, man. It was a blast. That was great experience, and that leveled me up with my clinch.
And how long did you stay out there for?
I was there for 6 weeks.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah. So I did 2 trips to Thailand and spent 6 weeks each time. You know?
Nice. Yeah, beauty.
It was pretty awesome. I came back, and what did I do next? I fought for the IKKC world title.
Okay.
And I fought a guy named Daigli Camaria. He was a French champion. He was like 24-1.
Damn.
Total stud. And we had an awesome fight, man. And I was like, I was about 5-6 minutes from winning a world title. Like I was winning that fight.
Okay.
I was like very clearly dominating.
The fight game.
He was awesome. It was a very back and forth fight, but I was definitely head on scorecards. Like I was my fight. And the dude has this wicked knee, and he has a scissor knee. He's a very good fighter. And he caught me in my ribs here, broke through my ribs, and the ribs hurt, but it's not nearly as bad as he fractured my cartilage in between the ribs.
Right.
And I just went down. My heart wanted to get up, and I was like, I couldn't breathe. And I was just like,
dude,
it was brutal, man.
Yeah.
It was just like he won, like hands down. I was definitely ahead on that fight.
Right.
But dude TKO'd me.
Good timing.
He was awesome, dude. And I remember one thing that was pretty badass.
How long does that take
fight.
to recover from? Sorry.
That took me a while, because like first 6 weeks, I like that was a pretty shitty injury, because you had to breathe like shallow, and you had to
Right.
sit on your back. You know what I mean?
Right.
And anytime I had a big breath, like it felt like a rubber band was pop.
Right.
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 And then I have to do this breathing exercise in this tube to make sure I didn't get pneumonia.
Right.
You know, so that would just make it pop all the time.
Oh,
It sucked,
brutal.
man. I was like, yeah, I had a good 6 weeks of depression eating donuts. You know,
I bet.
It was tough. You know.
Sorry, man. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh no, it was cool. But I remember like in that fight too, like my demeanor in that they brought like the medics came and they were going to take me out on the little gurney there, whatever, you know.
Right.
And I was able to stand up, and they're getting him the winner, and like the place was dead quiet, and they're like let's get on this gurney. I was like, everybody came. I was like, I'm walking here like a man. I'm not gonna be a little bitch. You know what I mean? I got like a standing ovation. I was like, yeah,
That's it.
And I was like, damn right. I felt good, you know.
Ramon Decker is fighting in Thailand. Looked at that stretcher and said, "You are not taking me out on that thing."
That being said, once I got to the back, I was like, all right, get me on this thing. You know, they took me
Nobody
off.
can see me.
I know. I was like, oh, we're good. Let's get on here. You know, it was pretty crap situation. You know?
Sure.
But and then he was the one too. Like there was a part where like the first round he did some like really unorthodox. I think he was a Savate fighter too. You know.
Okay. Yeah.
And he did this switch kick and didn't get me in the throat, but got me right underneath here, and that's how I got kicked in the throat. You know.
Damn.
And that was a fun fight though. Like I look back at the fight like, damn.
Did you win?
Know? No, he TKO'd me.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Jumped me one. Sorry.
Yeah, but he was one of the better guys I definitely fought. Like, and he just fought in glory, you know.
Right.
And not like the lower end glory. He fought like main card in Europe, like I think 3 weeks ago.
Okay, shit.
And he's doing the deal, man. I'm like proud of that guy, and we're like, you know, we're always supporting each other. That guy's a badass, you know.
Nice.
So,
That's the best part of the fight game, right? When you're in there fighting, like you said, fighting your buddy there or an old training partner, the reality is you're faceless. I got my own task at hand.
Yeah.
You know, you can have any name you want. I got my own shit to worry about, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just like, you know, you're in the hurt business.
That's it.
You know, and just like, you know.
Yeah. At the end of it, I hope it's my hand and not yours, and we move on. Right?
Yeah. And afterwards too, there's like a mutual respect, you know.
Yeah.
And then later on after that, I fought for. Had a few fights, got a few more wins, and I was able to fight for the IKKC title again.
World title?
Yeah, world title. Yep. Yeah. I still held the international 2 times. You know.
Yeah.
And I fought for it again, and I was very convinced I won that fight. You know what I mean? And didn't get the decision. Happens. You know.
Sure.
And I was like, all right, move on. And I was supposed to get back. I think I had another fight after that. Had to win. And then I was going to fight a guy from out here for it, you know?
Okay.
And unfortunately, a pandemic happened, eh?
Unfortunately.
You know, and I was like, you know, a couple weeks from that. And that happened. And after that, it was miserable because you could like, oh, this is probably going to raise in like a week or like probably a month. And I was just like training my ass off. And out in LA, things were tense. You know?
Yeah, man.
Training in secret, you know.
Right, along with like protests.
Yeah,
you know,
it was wild, man. And saw a lot of the city got like burned up.
Right.
You know, it was wild, man. It was a wild time, and you'd be like, okay, Dennis was trying to get like some of these like, you know, a TV deal or whatnot to happen where like we could have it with no audience, and it's hard to do with Thai boxing, you know.
Sure.
So then you'd be training your ass off and have this focus, and like then it would just fall through, and you're just like, oh man,
start again.
Oh, it was brutal. And that this went on through the whole pandemic, but I was like in fight camp for 2 years pretty much.
Damn.
You know? And it was brutal. So got out of the pandemic and got an opportunity to fight for a promotion that my sponsor, Trident Fight Gear, was involved in.
Who's your sponsor?
Trident Fight Gear.
Trident Fight Gear.
Trident Fight Gear. Marcos Ramirez.
There you go.
Love that guy.
Shout out to them.
Oh, yeah.
And
they had this thing they were putting together. It was called Titans of Muay Thai. And we got this guy to agree to the fight, and he was going and train down in Mexico with like Eddie Farrell and all that.
Tulum, Muay Thai. Shout out to Eddie and all those
man.
guys, and Nick, all you guys.
Yeah,
awesome place.
He was getting after it, and he was like, you know, like I'm in great shape for this fight, and he just seemed like he's a really nice guy, and we had the fight, went down there, and I was just zoned in. I was training with Chris for this fight, and it was funny, man. It was back it up from there. Well, no, I'll finish with the story, but I'll finish the story.
You get to choose.
But yeah, went down there and, you know, I was focused for it, and this guy was like a veteran too, and just picked him apart.
Yeah.
I landed like probably 25 low kicks on him. His legs were just shot.
I know the fight you're talking about.
Yeah. And, but we watched the whole fight, like this total Rob Kaman style, just chopped him down. You know?
Nice.
Almost knocked him out of the head kick first round. I wish it could have gone a little longer, you know, but it was fun, you know.
Nice. When did that stop? That you stopped him?
Second round.
Second
At
round.
the very beginning of the second round, his leg gave out, and
Probably for the better.
Yeah, I don't think it was going in a good direction. First round, like I got him with a head kick, and luckily this kind of grazed him. But yeah, that was that. And then prior, with all these fights that kept on falling through, prior to that, I went up to Wyoming. I was supposed to fight a guy up there, and it was with Chris again. And Trident was there as well, and we were like, oh yeah, we're gonna fight this world title in Wyoming. This is gonna be badass. It's in Casper. And
Casper, Wyoming.
It was wild, man. We got there and I was fighting like this big biker guy,
Okay.
And he comes into the weigh-ins were in a bar. There was one official there.
Oh,
no,
geez.
the official wasn't even there actually. And we got there. I weighed in. I was 198, and he was supposed to be 200, and the guy was like 218. And Chris is like, nah, bro, like this is like, nah, man. Chris is like that. And there was like, oh, come on, man. Like, I'm dried up, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, dude, you're like 218.
You might as well have said 400 pounds.
Yeah. Like, I was like, there's like,
pounds.
They're like, it was very weird kind of situation because like they were trying to bribe me. It's like, how we pay you $1,000, all that. And Chris is like, well, I mean, that's a good amount of money, man. I don't know.
Right.
And I was like, no,
maybe
dude,
10,000.
I'm here for a world title fight. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna
That's
waste
very
this,
true, right? We signed a contract, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah. Yep.
And then we're in there, and this guy, like, I felt bad for him, but his brother was there, and his brother was very acting funny, And his brother was this big biker guy, and he came up to me and he's like, "What's it gonna take?" And I was like, "For him to make weight, dude. Make weight.
Make
we're good."
weight, like we agreed on.
And he's like, "You little LA." He's like, "Man, like, what's going on?" And I was like, "Dude, we're here to fight, man." And he's like, "Yeah," like he just started talking all this stuff, and he tried to get like, I'm in my underwear. I had this weighed in,
Right.
And I'm like, not a hothead, but I was like, "What'd you say, man? Huh? What?" And like we're about to get into this with this giant biker.
Jesus.
He's got all these other guys coming around. Then Chris comes over. He's like, "Boys, we need like something bad's gonna happen here." Like, and Chris is ready to throw it down too. It had one of my other buddies there that's like a little more like level-headed. He was with the promoters like, "Dude, there's about to be a fight in here, and it's not gonna be good,
Right.
And there's this girl comes over, and she's as she's as jacked as all these guys, and like she's definitely on some kind of like horse meat, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
she was jacked. She's like, "What is it gonna take for you to take this fight?" And I was like, "For him to make weight." And then Chris was like, wait, like, who are you? Because he thought she was like part of the commission. She's like, "I'm his girlfriend." And Chris is like,
girlfriend.
she's like, Chris is like, we're out here, dude,
Yeah.
So that was like so many of those things happened prior to the fight in
Sure.
Arkansas. Where I was,
All of you people harassing me, asking me what it's going to take, you clearly have no idea how the fight world works.
Yeah.
You sign a contract, you make the weight.
make the weight, man. And it's so seeing a lot of that crazy stuff happen,
I bet.
So we had that fight in Arkansas after that, won that world title.
So that fight was a no-go.
that fight, no, we
Yeah.
were out,
Yeah.
and like we were like, dude, we're gonna get jumped regardless.
Yeah, let's get out of here.
Yeah, it was pretty sketchy, And then we had the fight in Arkansas that I told you about, and then after that, it was a little bit of a dry spell, and going through a little bit of some personal stuff.
Sure, COVID will do that.
Yeah.
No.
And didn't have a very I had this fight, and was easy. It was too easy almost. You know what I mean?
Is that right?
And it was just like going really good, but I was going like through some stupid stuff that where you're like, whoa, idiot,
Right.
like
yeah, we've all been there.
stupid, And then I remember the second round, I was like, oh, I think I want to be punished a little bit. Let's this guy hit me a bit. I need to be punished. You know?
Right. Let me know I've been in a fight.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or just like, like this head was just like, nah, I don't care. And ended up like getting a little hole in my eardrum,
Damn.
And this got called, so had the injury. And then I was just like, you know what, man, I think I need to focus on some other aspects of life.
Yep.
And like I said, I moved out to LA to act.
Right.
And before I went pro, I was booking a good amount of work. I did like 10 national commercials. Was in a Super Bowl commercial, did Budweiser,
No
a lot
shit.
a lot of good stuff. And I got to work with Chris Christopherson and Bo Bridges in a film.
Wow, cool.
Like I did some good stuff. And then when I went pro, I was like, all right, it's going to be 50-50. If I start really booking, I got to let the fighting go because that's what it came here for,
Right.
And when I turned pro, it became 90-10,
Okay.
I was like lying to myself, and my booking went down, it went down by 90%.
Right. It's hard. It's hard to juggle both those. I'd imagine.
You cannot play fight. You mean and I don't regret anything I did because it was all I got to get to really good feats, and I accomplished almost all my goals. You know what I mean? With
Nice.
fighting, and that fight last year, I was like, need to work on myself a little bit and just focus on some other things outside of this because I've dedicated my whole life to like the fight game, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I got out of it a bit and I was working with horses again a lot. And then I started to wrangle horses for like photo shoots, for commercials, and that was going really well. And then I started to really focus on like acting. I started booking some smaller stuff and not a model by any means. I booked a few kind of like modeling gigs for Western things.
Handsome bastard, look at you.
No. I'm like, nah. But, and then I just like, right after the fight, like that fight too, I was like, I need to get like myself back too. So I called up this one guy and he's a legend. His name's Cooper DeWitt. And he's he's a badass, like as rank as you get. And he's like I think he was top 5 bronc rider before, and he's still killing it, and he's gonna get back to that top.
Does he own his own clothing line?
He should. I think he's actually gonna be
What's
coming
on
out
your
with
shirt here? I keep seeing these letters.
This is for
Backwards. I thought it was CDR. That's where I thought.
right.
DCR.
Yeah,
okay.
This is another one, but like I think he's gonna be coming out for his own thing. But he's a bucking horse contractor, so he has bucking horses, and he's just like one of the best bronc riders. He's a badass dude. So I hit him up I'm like, hey man, can I come down to Arizona and like get on a bronc? You know, I just want to get back and like, you know, fill that, you know, because I used to cowboy and ridden colts. He's like, yeah, sure, come on down, man. Guy didn't know me from Tom, you know.
Nice.
Went down there. I rode a stock saddle bronc, you know, cowboy bronc, and had a great time. I didn't know this, but I fought when I had that fight too. Like I had COVID. We had no testing,
sure,
you know
sure.
what I mean? And I came back and we're all kind of feeling kind of funky. We're all like driving back, like, man, I feel kind of funny, dude. We're like, yeah, man, yeah. So we're all like, oh, we got COVID, like, we got the COVID cold, you know.
That's it.
So we had like a week off, and then I started talking to Cooper, and Cooper's like, man, Charlie, you should like start like riding more. And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah, man, you covered a pretty good horse, like, get in there and do it. So I was like, damn right. So I got like he got me hooked up with these people out in Wyoming, the Wilsons and the Wildens, and I went out there for like 6 weeks. Got on a shit ton of broncs, made the finals, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna go back in the fall. I'm gonna hit the finals, you know.
Nice.
Went back to Canada, went in Cowboy a little bit, got to see some friends, and was just like, man, I found this passion that I really had for fighting and bronc riding and acting.
Right.
You know, things are going really good. And I came back from Canada and went to the finals. I took 3rd place in the finals for bareback, and I was like, damn, this is like, I'm doing really like better at this than I did when I first of all started fighting. And I was like, this is so much fun, dude. I'm like,
This is fairly recent, right?
yeah, man, this is last year.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And just had a blast, man. Just got after it, and just around like the best people. You know what I mean? Like
Nice.
all the people I travel with are just like, they're always helping me. You know, we're all like, you know, we're not competing against each other. We're competing against the horse. You know?
Right,
so
right.
It's like a real
The
camaraderie.
support system with each other. Yeah,
It's
camaraderie.
different from the fight game. You know
That's
what I mean?
right. That's right.
It's pretty cool. And then the acting stuff started going really well. I got like a little stunt job on a TV show
Nice.
called Mrs. Davis. It's out on Peacock right now. And through that, I met like this huge stunt coordinator, and he was like, so you act more on? He's like, I looked a lot of your stuff up online. He's like, oh, you got an interesting story. And I was like, yeah, man. He's like, well, I'm like coordinating a movie with Michael Keaton. He's like, you got to get your people to like, you know, send your stuff in. I was like, I'll send it in. I was like, I just let go of my theatrical agent. He's like, they're not going to see you. He's like, send me some of your stuff, and I'll send it into the casting director to see if they're able to see you. So he sent it in for me. He's like, they said they're going to bring you for an audition. I was like, badass. So I was wrangling like a photo shoot at this place, and the guy that is my boss out there that owns the ranch. He used to be a very successful actor himself.
Okay.
And I hit him up, and I was like, dude, I just got the audition. You know, it's like, but it's due for midnight. He's like, go over your sides. I'm going to coach you when I get in, and we'll shoot it in the house. You know, so was like, you know, wrangling this photo shoot and looking at my phone, like going over the lines all day, you know?
Right.
And then worked on the script with him that night, sent it in, and then I was shooting horses like that next, like, you know, 3 days later. And old boy, that's the stunt coordinator, he hits me up. It's like, Keaton just watched your audition. You got the part, dude. Casting directors hit me up, and then I got that part, and I was like, dude, this is badass, you know? And I went to the fittings, and I'm like seeing these people that are like, you know, scheduled for the fittings too. And I was like, dude, James Marsden's going to be in this? This is badass.
Is this real life?
Al Pacino's going to be in this movie?
Damn.
This is badass,
there
man.
You go.
You know? And I got to work on that film and just working with such professionals like that. And Michael Keaton is just like such a great guy.
The Batman.
Yeah. like the Batman.
The Batman, yeah.
And he's like really into horses too, and he was just a
Oh,
really
shit.
cool guy. You know, like that was like being around those guys. It was like a master class of acting, just to be able to be around such high caliber individuals, and good people too. You know.
Oh shit.
So that was awesome, man. And at this time, I was like, man, life is going like in this direction. I got to keep focusing on this, and I was kind of just getting away from the fighting, and I was doing some other smaller stuff, and then just the rodeo. I was just rodeoing like every weekend, and I was like, man, I'm living the best life right now. This is awesome. I'm getting to wrangle horses on movie sets, and I'm out like doing acting work and having a ball, you know. And but part of me was just like, dude, I do not feel like fulfilled like that last fight. You know what I mean? Like just doing something stupid like that, and you know, I was just.
And me and you had to chat too. It was kind of like, oh, you know, things are going well. And it was kind of like, I'm not sure about fighting anymore. And, you know, clearly, and you look at your Instagram, man, things change. But I knew, man, the second it was like, whoa, what do you think? Do you think I should do another one? I'm like, oh, of course you are. That sentence said everything.
Yeah, exactly. You know, like, so like Dennis, like this year I was getting after it, doing what I was doing, this like rodeoing and whatnot. And Dennis, WCK Dennis Warner hit me up and he's like, hey, you want to fight? And I was like, I don't know, what's on the table, you know? He's like, you know, do a world title fight, because I held those #1 spots in those 2 spots, you know, like for IKKC, for kickboxing. This was kickboxing world titles and WKL. And I said, like, all right, since I hold those 2 spots, if you're able to sanction both at the same time, like, let's do it, you know? He's like, no problem, you know? So fought a veteran. Guy was 21-1, came out of retirement to fight me.
Right.
And I was just like, I'm going to do this proper. But like that fight camp was insane, because I was wrangling horses for a TV show that's out right now. Not sure if I'm allowed to say. I'm not going to say which the show
That's right,
is.
no worries.
But it was pretty badass show, and I was wrangling. I was doing 10 to 14-hour days.
Damn.
On that. So I was getting up at 4 a.m. because I was living out in Simi Valley on the ranch.
I see.
I was getting up at 4 a.m., doing my strength conditioning or doing my road work, doing 10 to 14-hour days, then going into Burbank at Defiant Gym, where I train now with Daniel Gutierrez, which with him...
Shout out to Daniel Gutierrez.
Daniel Gutierrez at Defiant Gym. I've won 3 world titles with him.
Beauty.
And then I got back with one of my homies that I used to be sparring partners with, Jason Borba.
Okay.
And he used to be a student of Rob as well. And they worked around my schedule, and they were sacrificing time. And it was literally train, work all day, go and spar at night, or do pad work, come back to the ranch, and get like 7 hours sleep. And it was like no life. And I did that for like
rinse, wash, repeat.
6 weeks, 7 weeks. Damn. And I remember doing this. I was like, am I doing the right thing right now? And I just remember I was just so focused, and I was just like, man, let's do this proper. My mind was good.
Life's going good.
Life's going good. I was like, you just like live every day like it's your last. And then I went in there and I dominated that fight in a
Did you ever?
violent fashion, dude. Violent, you know?
Yes, sir.
And it felt so good getting those 2 titles, man. Like, you know, with that, like I have 11 titles now altogether.
Nice.
And, you know, it was awesome.
Damn.
You know, that and a good amount of pro fights, amateur fights.
Nice,
it was
man.
awesome, you know. And, you know, we'll see what happens. I'm definitely not done yet, you know, but I'm focusing a lot on my bronc riding and my acting. And, like, I've been fighting for so long, and, like, I feel like I'm in my prime right now. Like, I definitely hit harder than I ever have.
Right,
like,
right.
My power is on another level, and just my fight IQ is pretty decent.
Nice.
And if I get time, when I get time, I train all the time still.
Yep,
Like I'm in the gym. I still train like 3 days a week for Thai boxing. I do my strength work.
I'll be on the pads after this.
We're gonna have a good training session. You know, it's gonna be awesome.
Yeah,
Hit some pads. And I'm not done, but it's not like I'm not trying to fight 6 times a year anymore.
Right,
You know?
right.
If I get the time where it permits, we'll see. But also, like, you know, this pony don't buck for free.
Well, right. Well, yeah. I was just gonna say too, like,
This is not a money sport. You know what I mean? This is not a money sport. Like, and a lot of like, you know, there's a lot of people. This is one thing I would say. Like, I'm very blessed where I have other things that I'm very passionate about. But like as we spoke to, like, you know, Muay Thai is amazing. It's made me like an amazing guy. But when you're doing anything, it's like don't have a backup plan. But you want to make sure you have stuff lined up in life because you will be broke doing this. Like, you know,
that's it. You put all your eggs in that basket, and at the end of the day, there's nothing else in any other baskets.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, like I've seen some podcasts with some young kids and down in LA, and they're like, yeah, you know, I'm doing this for like this tournament or whatever, and it's gonna for my life and my family. I'm like, bro, like, you know, I'm not gonna say anything because like it's awesome to see that passion with some kids, you know.
Right.
But it's like, bro. Like,
We were there too.
yeah, dude. You know that there's no money in this game. You know.
No, it's a passion sport for sure.
Yeah, it's a passion sport, and it's awesome.
It's a lifestyle.
You know what I mean? Yeah, I love it. You know what I mean? Like I've had, for a North American guy, I've had like 42 pro fights. You know, and I've had a good amount of amateur fights too.
And not just that, man. But did you hear the story you just told us for the last hour? Like just the 6 weeks, Northwest Territories. Actually, I decided I want to be an actor. Like, it's an incredible story, man.
Yeah, thanks, man.
You know, like and if anything, in a test to those young people we're talking about, just don't talk about the shit and think about it. Go chase it. See what happens. If it doesn't work, go back. You know, you can go do what you're doing.
100%. If you're not passionate about what you're doing in life, what's the point? Like everyone's like, oh, do a safe job where I make like $100,000 a year. Like that safe job is not safe. You could lose that. You know what I mean?
Right.
If you're gonna do something in life, you got one life to live, and like.
And you may be making $100,000, but you might be miserable.
Yeah, exactly. You go working at a plant, and there's nothing wrong with working at a plant or anything. If somebody's happy, that's awesome. But if you have bigger aspirations in life, man, go for it because
it's your life and you get one shot at it.
Yeah,
exactly.
100%, you know.
All right, man. So we're getting near the end here. I just got some classes rolling in here pretty quick. But can you tell me what has been your favorite fight of yours and your least favorite fight of yours?
Man, that's a tough one. Can I name a few?
Sure.
Yeah,
sure.
I'd say when I fought my last fight was probably one of my favorites because I was just absolutely controlled this power. I was just evil in that fight.
Right, right.
Like I was fighting on my potential, you know?
Nice.
And another one was when I fought Casey Green. Another one is when I fought Matt Baker. We fought him in Glory.
Right, right.
And that was pretty awesome. He's a giant of a man. He's awesome. Like I think he's top 5 in Glory right now for his weight. He's a killer.
Beauty.
He's a 6'6" monster. And then Mark McKinnon was pretty cool too. Like that was fun. That was that was an awesome win, you know?
Right.
I remember when we fought, like I caught Mark, and like I remember when I was out there, everybody thought I was an American.
Right, right.
And then, were you there? You were there for that fight, weren't you?
Yeah.
And I remember I was there, and I was like, you know, the whole place was quiet, and I was like, I'm really from Canada, and people was like, yeah, you know. And that was my first title. You know what I mean? So that was a fun one too, and I had a lot of respect for Mark. Yep. And least favorite fight I had, I fought this one fella in New York, and we both just circled each other. You know what I mean? It was an amateur fight, and it was just like, it was a sparring contest. That was embarrassing. And then the fight that I said 2 fights ago, where I was doing really well, and then I just was like, you know, oh yeah, let's just be stupid. I deserve to be punished, you know.
Right.
Like, it was just stupid. You know what I mean? Those 2 fights were stupid fights.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Where like
deciding you want to be punished, let that be on the dance floor in the gym, not a fight.
Exactly. That and the other fight too, where it's just like literally we both just circled each other and feinted each other for like 3 rounds. You know what I mean? Like that was just like, okay, if you're gonna fight, go in there and fight. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
All right, man. Last question. Who are your top 3 favorite fighters of all time and why? Any sport.
I would say for K1, it was Alexei Ingasov.
Nice.
You know, super technical.
Scorpion.
I would say Rob Kaman.
Any reason you can think of? Very similar style. Obviously took a lot from him.
Yeah. And then I'd say for boxing, Mike Tyson.
Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, buddy.
Yeah.
I've heard that name quite a few times when I asked that question.
Yeah, of course, right? I'll go into it.
Beauty, man. All right, dude. Anything else before we're out of here in classes? Kids start running around?
Thanks to my sponsors, Trident Fight Gear, you know.
Trident Fight Gear.
My rodeo sponsors too, D5 and Lone Oak. So I appreciate all you guys supporting me, and all the people that support me through my career. Like all the coaches I mentioned, like I think a lot of fighters forget where they come from. Like if it wasn't for Pride Gym and Glenn Klesnico, I would not be here. If it wasn't for Rob or, you know, Danny from Defiant or Jason or any of these guys. There's another guy I forgot to mention. His name is Neil Chanchinchai. I can't say his last name too well, but he's a phenomenal coach out of LA, and I was with him for a while too. And just a lot of fighters, this is not like you're the one getting in there, but without the coaches and the people that support you along the way, you're not shit. You know what I mean? So I think a lot of fighters have to remember where they come from, you know, even if they like leave their gym on bad terms. If you don't remember where you came from, you ain't shit.
That's it.
Yeah. You know?
Good advice, man. All right, my friend.
Hey, brother.
I appreciate it.
Let's go smash
He's
some
a
pies.
real ass cowboy. I picked this guy up at the airport with a saddle. He had a saddle with him.
Gonna be riding some broncs out here.
Awesome, man. All right, guys. I'll get this one out right away. Make sure you sign up on the 28th. You'll see this guy. He'll teach you what's up. Listen to all that experience. He'll show you what's up.
Heck yeah.
I'll see you guys later. Thanks.